Hello everybody and welcome to another video. In this video it's going to be another showcase. Now this is going to be one on a new airline, but this is going to be different to the kind of showcases which I've done before, which have been for airlines where I'm showing this is what this series is going to be like, this is what this one's based off. The stuff that I did in it's made me find out how JetUS, the original one for Series 2, failed, how that failed, and how Air UK could have been done a bit better. And how the new JetUS in Series 2.5 can be improved a little bit to make it even more profitable. So this is a new airline which I have, which I started up yesterday. But this airline is called Air-Merica, just a pun there. I was like, that was just the thing I came up with. I was like, well, that's kind of playing on the American accent, isn't it? I'll kind of show you the livery that I have. There's just a few of the aircraft that I have that you might have seen. And so this is the livery that I have for it. Is like a little blue strip and going up to the tail there. My logo was the one that says Air, if you can't quite see that. Oh, you can see that. That blue looks a lot brighter than it is on screen, the one that goes up on the tail, so I am sorry about that. It's a lot darker than that. I might change the engines at some point, because I don't really like it when the engines are coloured. I don't like it when they colour the back bits of the engines there, because that's meant to be grey. I think that needs to be grey there, because like on the 737 they put it grey, but not on the A320s, and they don't always colour the whole engine. I'm just, why? If you're not going to colour the engine, if you're not going to colour the engine properly, then just don't do it at all, that's what I'd say. So I've got A319s, as you can see, got 99 of them, with 7 that I've just got delivered. I've got the A320 as well, same sort of livery right there, and I also have, if I just go up, I also have the Airbus A321 here, which I use on the highest capacity services, which I have in my airline, and then I also have the Airbus A330-200, which I use for my longer haul services. And so here it is. I think this is it's quite nice looking aircraft. It's a lot nicer in this livery than it has been in a few other liveries. I'd say like the A320 series, that's the best one. And what the hell did I just do there? I don't know. Brought something up there, and no, I don't want to quit the game. So anyway, yeah. Guess I should have explained this airline. So what I've done is I started up in Atlanta, as you can see here, where there's just a black hole, or what should I say, a white hole of route just all sucking into Atlanta here. As you can see, I've used up 1,704 slots, so apparently it's 1,687. It's actually got, actually being used, but I've just got 1,704, so that might be upgraded. That's already upgraded twice. Because it starts at a level 4 airport. You think it'd be level 5, but apparently not. And yeah, these hubs that I have been a different way to doing hubs than I normally do. So what I started out, instead of starting out in 2000, which I did for JetUS to Series 2.5, and also for the Air UK group airline which I had, I started in 1990 just to see if I could get like the ball rolling a bit more. So I'd have 40 years to do it instead of 30. And when I started, I decided that I was going to use the A320, and that was a good move, because when I used the A320, that allowed me to get the other series as well, because I like the fleet commonality, and also I can utilise the whole of the A320 series as well with this airline, apart from the A318 of course, which I do not have. So what I've done is this is kind of another airline like I want to say JetUS, AUK. Keep on getting the name of that. And what I've done is all of the routes that I have on short haul, apart from a couple which I think I need to change, are long haul, short haul, sorry, and they just have A320s on the route. So as you can see, I've got a popular route there, or semi-popular, Atlanta to Charlotte, that has an A320 on, and that's got very low satisfaction. I might have to replace that A320 at some point. But this is the same sort of airline that Air UK was. Now the different thing that is to Air UK is that I have got more aircraft in my short haul, and I'm not doing simply just one single aircraft that's for the whole of the short haul fleet, which is what I did with Air UK, and then one that was for the whole of the long haul fleet, which I did, which is the 737-800 and later the 737 MAX 8, and also the 787-8. But with this, I am doing the A320 series, and I'll move on to the A320 series. I might move on to the 737 MAX, because I could do like the MAX 7, MAX 8, and MAX 9 as well. But I need something to replace the A321, which I might have to do at some point, but they're only really high capacity planes, I'm not using them like massively. So what I've done is I have got this fleet here. So as you can see, I've got 106 A319s. I've got 7 of them which are unused because I've just got them delivered this term. I have 146 A320s, 10 A321s, and 107 A330s with 2 on order. Now, this airline, as I said, it's quite different than UK, but the reason why I have these lower capacity aircraft is because I have kind of changed the way I do things. So what I did in Air UK was I did the most popular routes. So something like, I don't know, like Atlanta to Chicago, I would put the 737-800 on that, and I would have it so it was at full price. Now, that's the kind of good thing to do, because that means that I'm making consistent profits with a lower capacity aircraft. Because if you don't know, I was kind of wondering why, if you remember from JetUS, I don't know if you remember, but I remember I said, like, New York to Charlotte, because if you know, like, the Sully Miracle on the Hudson thing, that US Airways aircraft, it was an A320, and I was like, why would they fly an A320? Oh, what the hell is it doing? I was wondering why have they, US Airways, they used an A320 on that route. Surely they'd use a high capacity aircraft like A330s, because they had then, or 767s. But what I didn't really take into account was the fact that what they do is they have more consistent profits, but they just run more services with the A320, and that means that they can have higher capacity, higher profits, sorry, through the fact that the aircraft are easier to fill. Now, the problems which I had with JetUS really muddling up my words here, is that some on a route like New York to Los Angeles, for example, in fact I put an A330 on it. What's it like here? A4, yeah, you see, I need to change that. I did wrong with that. So what I did originally was I was tempted to put a higher capacity aircraft on there, like the 747, and the problem was, this is basically the whole underlying reason why JetUS failed, like the original JetUS failed, was because it started off in the 1960s with me using DC-8s. Now, DC-8s were essentially the 737-800s. They're basically a little lower capacity than that, but the way I configured them was essentially 737-800 capacity, or a little bit below, or A320 capacity, whatever you want to say. And that was a bad thing to do. A bad thing to do, a good thing to do. If you wonder why I do this, because I always think of the next sentence before I say the one that I need to say. So yeah, anyway, the DC-8s, because they had that capacity, and I put them on the most popular routes that I showed you, like Los Angeles to San Francisco, for example, and that was like 4 million profit or something like that, because I put it at 160 price, and that amount of passengers, it was enough to be profitable pretty much throughout the whole year, with barely any drop off in the low months, like April, which I happen to be in now, in fact. So what I did wrong in JetUS was when when I got into the 1970s, of course, the 747 and the DC-10 came out. So the 747, I put them on like Los Angeles to New York, because I was like, oh, I was making 12 million in the summer. I didn't take into account winter. Now, in the winter time, it would make about 7 or 8 million. Now you may be going, well, if you put an A330 or a DC-10 on, sorry, stick with the 1970s, the A330 wasn't out then, neither was the A300, not until like 1976 or 74, whenever it was. Yeah, if you put a 747 on there, you'd be able to make 12 million in the summer, but then in the other months you just make 7 million, compared to like having to make 8 million or whatever, or 7 million in other months. And you may be going, well, like, you may say that, but the thing is, that's not consistency. Because the 7 million or 8 million that you make in April will be because it's at 60% capacity, and it's not at full capacity. When you have a lower capacity aircraft and it fills up, then it will make the same amount of money, but it will not lose money because it's not full. And the more full it is, the more profitable it is, quite obviously. So you need to operate smaller aircraft. Now, on some routes, like the A321 I bought simply because there's so much demand that they can fill that. So, for example, if I go from like New York to San Francisco, that would be a popular route. He says, maybe I need to switch that out. But I know this is not going to be completely perfect. So, like Atlanta to Chicago, for example, and that's surely going to stay at high capacity, or not, I don't know. They're basically, you know what I mean, they're still in the high 80s, they're not like 60% or something like that, and you have to, like, they're not going to be completely fine the whole time. So, yeah, like, a high capacity aircraft like that is going to be less profitable, because even if it makes 12 million in the summer, it's going to make less in the winter, and it's not going on the spring, and it's not going to make up that loss, and it's going to be more expensive to buy them, and it just doesn't work. So if you use a low capacity aircraft, then it's going to be more consistent in profits, and the more consistent your profits are, that means that they'll go up and down less. Like in the winter and the summer, and the spring. I always say winter and summer. It's basically the spring and summer. The difference there, and like Christmas is just one in between, and then there's like a bit of autumn and winter as well. Essentially, you have more consistent profits, so that means that you can buy more aircraft at more times, which will just like snowball into a bigger thing where you can have lots and lots of aircraft on routes and get profitable very quickly. Sorry there. Very rude today. Because I remember I think it was Domageeko who said it on a comment, and I haven't actually seen the comment for ages. If he unsubbed, I don't know. Might have done. But yeah, he went and said a few months ago now, he went and said that he was like, oh, is it good that I managed to get from the 1972 and got like 500 million profit? And at the time I was like, what? How's that bad? Well, he's kind of implying it was bad, but I don't know if that's what he meant. But he was kind of like asking me whether it was good or not. And at the time, of course, I was like, yeah, that's quite good. But that's kind of average, because you can really push it with this. Now, the top profit I made with this airline was, I think it was 674 million, and I've been going for 14 years, because I'm in 2004 now. So I've done pretty well, I'd say. Because what I've done is I've had a very simplistic form of fleet. Now, you may be going, well, I was saying about the short haul thing, and I didn't really outline that, but I'll say that in a second. So the thing with JetUS is sort of like later on in the game, I also started replacing my aircraft way earlier than they were supposed to. Like with the MD-11, for example, I had them, like I replaced the DC-10s, and they're supposed to, when they were like nearly 20 years old, which makes sense because they were that old and they got their the life they used to have. And there was the DC-10-30s because I replaced the DC-10-10s and the A330s, A300s, sorry, before then. But what I did was I was basically like, well, a new aircraft's come out, I have to put it in instantly to stay efficient. No, you don't. You don't have to put it in instantly, especially in a game where you don't have competitors. And I didn't need to put in those MD-11s instantly, didn't I? Well, in fact, no, I did, because they were, like the DC-10s were starting to, like, get really, really old. But the MD-11s, when I replaced them with, like, because I was like, oh, they're going to be replaced by the 777-200, which was fair enough. And I went and said later on that, oh, I should have replaced them with the 777-300. I shouldn't have replaced them at all until about 2005, basically, when I went bust. Because that was when they would have got their life out of them, and that's when they would have started going downhill in terms of like running costs and things like that. But in terms of like, what was the point of replacing them? It was just a waste of money to replace them like 6 years after I put them in. There was no point in doing that. And also there was a thing about renovation when the new seats come out with like the different decades, because you get new seats in 1970, 1980, 1990 and 2000. And the greatest example of this I can think of is the 747-400, because it comes out in 1989, I think it's January 1989, and then I put it in, and then the 1990 seats come out. So then I put them in, and then I'm like, well, like after I put them in, I'm like, well, I need to put in the seats on the 747-400s, which I've just replaced, and I couldn't be bothered to wait for one blooming year to replace them before I could get those seats. Well, I have to get all of those seats in, and it's just basically the same thing. There was no point in doing it. It's not going to affect it. You just buy new aircraft, and then when they get down to like under 60% or whenever you can like mass renovate them, and then you can do that. You don't have to renovate them individually. The game does that because you don't need to renovate your aircraft if they're like over 60%. There's just no point in doing that. They've got old seats. Oh well, it's the end of the world. Brilliant. And then like towards the end, like in the 1990s in JetUS, the old JetUS, it was simply just flat out replacements. I set up barely any routes, didn't I? Like before then, it was just flat out routes. Like 1970s, 1980s, I was setting up loads of routes. 1990s, it was just replacing every single plane. Because by the time I got one replaced and started doing a few routes with them, the next one would come out. So I was spending the whole decade just doing nothing. And of course, I'm replacing these aircraft with big ones. So I'm setting up, putting 777s and like things like that. I was having 777-200s on routes which didn't need them. I was having them on like low 200 tour routes, and that really only makes money in the summer because it was the highest capacity aircraft. It's like Los Angeles to New York with a 747. It only makes real money in the summer months, so there's no point in doing it. There's absolutely no point in doing it. You put on a capacity of aircraft which will work, which will be highly profitable consistently for most things possible, which usually necessitates a lower capacity aircraft. So as you can see, I've got the A330-200. That's not the lowest capacity aircraft you can get. I could have got the 767-200, but I thought this would be the best one to do because they're quite efficient. And also I decided to go for an Airbus fleet because I thought, you know, best thing to do. The A330-200, I configured them with 251 passengers, I believe. If I just go check the A330s and just go on that one, and just go on the rear here, and then you have a look at it on here, like so. Yeah, as you can see, 251 passengers is how many people you can see. That's yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, that's how many it can seat. But that would be, for one, I got rid of the first class on that. Because I don't want first class on like an airline like this. And secondly, like normally, like Atlanta to London, if I was doing this in like JetUS, I would have put a 747 on that. But the thing is, I bet that that's quite profitable now, he says, but still. And plus the smaller aircraft as well, because that means they won't have to fill up as many seats. Also the operating costs are lower. It's just better all around. You need to use smaller aircraft. That's the best way to make money, and your fleet should just be all simplistic. You shouldn't have to have massive aircraft. In fact, 747s, you should only really lease them at certain times. Like, you should only really have to lease them in the summer. Like, say, like New York to Los Angeles, I could lease a 747-400, like in the 1990s, for the summer months, and then I'd make money on there, and then I'd just send it back. I could, like, lease one every summer or something like that. I don't have to have, like, one that's sitting there all the time, basically losing money all the time in the winter and the spring, and also in the autumn as well. There's just no point in that. Well, not necessarily the autumn, because I've actually found out that October is actually the worst month for that. November is actually when it starts climbing back up again. You just can't really tell, because I've seen on some routes. I've been in, well, I'm in December, which shows like the months for the previous month. So I'm in December, and I see November's profits, and on some routes they're starting to go back up again. I know it's on this airline. I was like, what? But apparently it does that. So yeah, that's basically why it fell, because I was just putting in 2 high-capacity aircraft for 2 low-demand routes, and it just wasn't working, and the profits were inconsistent, which basically led to the downfall of my airline when the economic crisis came. That's why I got really slaughtered in economic crises. Wasn't there 2, I think, in JetUS Series 2? But essentially what happened was, because these were really high-capacity aircraft that were very expensive on routes that didn't have the demand for it, with falling passenger numbers, and also I found out they actually lowered the popularity of the routes during an economic crisis as well. I think I showed you on JetUS in Series 2, Shanghai, it was at like 400 and something, I think, and then like before the economic crisis hit in like 2005, and then when it finished it was like 320. That's just what killed me, and that's why I got so low profits, and like towards the end I was like losing money in the winter. It's because the capacity of aircraft was so high, and they kept on going up, because every time I replaced an aircraft it would be slightly higher than the one before, because I was like, oh, it needs to be higher, for no apparent reason. So that's why I was losing loads of money, and that's why this one is a lot different. Now, if I show you the graph, I don't know if it will actually show you what it was like before I did start doing long haul, because I started doing long haul in 2000, because I didn't actually want to do it like to start with. I wanted to get stable short haul. That's the value graph. What's passenger number like? No, you can't really see it. But as you can see, we had a massive dip in 2003. I don't know why. Really don't. But as you can see, I am gradually managing to go up. Some years it goes bad, some years it's not as good. But that's because I'm doing a lot more long haul, so you should expect that. And it's because fuel prices going up. Yeah, there was just an oil crisis there. But that barely affected me, because it didn't really affect you in this game. That's going down a bit, I guess, but that's coming up, so that's... No, that'll be why. But when I was saying, I did all those things in JetUS, and I was like, oh, it failed because there was lowering passenger numbers, and the fuel was going up, and the 777s went weird. It's like, no, the whole core concept of the airline was flawed. That's why it failed. And I always wondered why, didn't I? So what I want to do, in fact, I'm going to order some A321s. I'm just going to show you how I put these routes in as well, because what I do with this is I have A319s here, and so they're on routes which are from 120 to 170 in tour, and I put them at full price. That's the thing to do. You always put them at full price. Don't put them at lower price, because then you're going to be lowering how much profit they get, even if it's like on a popular route. That's why I don't do like 80-20s on a route going to, will be the best place to show it. Like going to Corpus Christi, for example. I wouldn't put a 737-800 on there. You put on an A319, and in fact I could do that from Houston. And be the best place to do it. So if I just do this, how many slots would that be? That'd be like 35, I think. So yeah, I put an A319 on that, because you make profits out of it. The only thing I don't mind is the business, but like, to be honest, business doesn't really matter in this airline. I don't really count it, because it's the economy where all the big money's made at, and so that's why that's what kind of matters to me. Was that 40? Yeah, it was. So if I just put in 35 or whatever I said I should put in. Something like that. Yeah, I don't put in like bigger aircraft than when they needed. You put in much lower capacity aircraft, and then you will have a lot more success, because the lower capacity your aircraft, then you'll just make more profits because there'll be less seats to fill, so you can make a lot more money out of it, which is why I'm putting A319s on here. And I'm thinking about in JetUS, because I use the 737s, I'll just use the 737-700, and that's what I'll do. So what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description to that episode when it's online in this video here, and because that was under 120 in business, I'll just put this down, and the cost of this down, because it doesn't need to be that expensive. But yeah, I will put that in the description for you to go check out. I'll also put it as a card on screen now, so you can just go watch that. I'll probably put it on an end screen, I don't know if I remember. Please remind me, someone. I just put those routes in there like that, and that will make us some money. As you can see, that was 145, and then I used the A320s from 170 to like basically up from there. I did do from 200 because what I did is when I didn't like start up A319 routes instantly, because one, it wasn't out yet, but two, I set up all of the places for the like all routes for the popular places with the A320, so like Chicago, New York, Dallas, Houston, Orlando, Los Angeles, etc. I set all those up, and then once that was done, I moved on to Chicago. And I did the same thing in Chicago, that's Milwaukee. I did the same in Chicago, and then I did Los Angeles after that as well. And then when I was starting to do New York, that's when the A319 came out, and I thought, oh, I could do some routes here, like lower capacity routes with it. So that's when I started using it, and that's when I started putting A320s on routes which are under 100 and or under 200, but they were over 170, and that's kind of what I say for that when they're at full price, because if you do that any lower, then you'd have to put the price down, which kind of defeats the point of having a higher capacity aircraft anyway. You're better off having really high profits, like you're better off having really high prices on smaller aircraft than low profits on bigger aircraft, if you know what I mean, because then the big profits will outweigh the cost of the plane on the smaller aircraft. If you're going to a lower capacity, low popularity place, but you're putting a big aircraft on, you're going to have to drop the prices, because then you just won't get the occupancy otherwise, so there's no point having the bigger aircraft, you might as well downsize. So I wonder if Mr. Chicken TV is watching this. He's probably he's probably dribbling going, yes, he's finally doing what I do, because he just does TU-104s or TU-124s everywhere, which I said to him, why don't you just use like DC-8s at the start or something like that, you'll be a lot more profitable. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of what I do. What I'm going to do actually is, because for some reason I got into my head that I should put the A330 on New York to Los Angeles. It was fine with the A321, and it was a lot more profitable with that, so I am going to change that, because that does not need to be there. As much as it might be a little bit more profitable, as I said, the cost is what's all that matters in here. I think I put one on Chicago to New York as well, if I do believe. Yes, I did, and in fact that's lower than the New York to Los Angeles route, so I need to go change them. How many did I put them? Was it just New York to Chicago and to Los Angeles as well? I don't know if I did one to Atlanta. I think I left Atlanta alone. Yeah, I did. You see, this is the thing. I shouldn't have done that, really. I should have just kept those A321s in place there. And yeah, let me go order them. Just order 2 of those aircraft there, and I'll put those on. But basically what I've been doing is I've just been doing some long haul, and that's basically what I've been doing recently, because I've satisfied so much short haul demand. But I find America's the best place to do this sort of strategy. Europe, I guess, but America's the best place, because you have loads of high capacity places which you can set up routes from. It's the same country, so you can put loads of routes in without having to worry about the cost of the duty free. Although I do incorporate some other cities into this model, so like Mexico City down here, and Guadalajara, because that's over 200, and Vancouver as well, and Toronto definitely. If I just find yeah, Toronto down there. In fact, Toronto could be my next hub. I'm on Houston now. I'm starting to build up Houston a bit more, but I haven't really put in like any A319 routes or anything like that. I've just done like the basing. That is essentially this whole model. I'm about to run out of time on my recording, so I better finish up. But that's essentially it. So what I'll do is I'll replace them. In fact, I guess I could go through the turns here, but I don't want to lose all these A319s which I put into place. So yeah, I'll replace them. This is essentially going to be the new model for JetUS. I'll put the link to the in the description, as I said, and a card which I put on screen earlier. That will be the link to the video part 6 of JetUS, which I haven't actually recorded yet, but I decided I'd do this because it's a lot quicker, because I don't have to do time lapse. I basically just have to cut out a few places. That's all it is. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video if you decide to do that one as well. Bye.